Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for September 22nd, 2023. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and also here are Ralph Kohler, who's sharing his screen, and we'll start off the discussion. Aaron McHale, Emma Harrell, Simo Helston, and Thomas Howell. Thanks all for coming. And go ahead, Ralph.
We're taking a look at allow to JS filter blocks and regions on the block layout administration page. The issue number is 3273173. The issue basically has one technical problem that is due to the fact that they are moving away from jQuery. And you will notice the issue when we're taking a look at it. Basically, what the issue is about, it is, just reload the page. It is just adding a filter to the block layout page in case you have tens or hundreds of blocks created, and then it's quite challenging to find your way or find a particular block on the page. I quickly just demonstrate functionality, application, and then you basically have that filtered and stripped down. Just wanted to illustrate the only problem I see. Yeah, menu. Yes. Basically, you're able to move everything around. Problem is, with the filtering, you only see the categories, names of categories that have a block that is matching the filter criteria in it. Problem is, if you change, for example, here in the select field to header, then it's somewhere outside, or if you change it underneath, then you see secondary menu is user account menu and main menu. So you just notice on the second look that it's basically in different regions. That I consider sort of problematic. And the other detail I've noticed is, are any questions before that?
Go ahead, Thomas.
It's not clear to me when we're looking at primary and secondary menus. Are there other are there other elements under primary, or was main navigation the only thing under primary?
In that case, primary was the only one.
But secondary looks like it had two things on it. Oh, but that one of them was the one that we're moving around. I was just thinking, like, if we looked at highlight, if it shows 100% or some portion of the things highlighted, for instance.
Maybe filter with primary, then we can see this too.
Could you try just highlighted for me? Because I want to see when it filters on the block. I thought it was supposed to be able to do the block.
It doesn't seem to filter regions.
Okay.
I thought in a previous patch it worked, that it was also the filtering was based on the regions as well.
Yeah, when you scroll to the top again, I'm so sorry. To the filter.
Okay.
Because it says block category there. Is that category is different than region?
Yeah, category is one of the column headers.
Yeah, I guess category to me is less useful than region, because let's say you had a very long, like highlighted had 15 menu items and you wanted to just get to that and move things, or is the working assumption that you're going to scroll down? Anyway, to me, that's a second problem, but I would want to be able to filter upon region as well, so that I'm just looking at the secondary menu or just looking at highlighted, so that if I wanted to move something, or if you have secondary and primary regions, if you wanted to move things between secondary and primary regions, that's all you were filtered on. But I was incorrectly understanding category. I didn't notice that category was a tag rather than an actual region.
Yeah, the region is the main sort on the page. So, just by scrolling, you can find the right region you want.
It's for things like primary and secondary menu are put together, but if you were to build menus that did not necessarily have their regions adjacent to one another, but you wanted to move items between those regions, that doesn't necessarily work.
So Ralph, you say that an earlier version of the issue did allow you to sort to filter on region?
I think it did, but I'm not entirely sure. But at the moment, it does not. So
I guess, I mean, the problem with that is that if you have lots of blocks, then presumably there's at least one region that has lots of blocks. And if that region happens to map what you're trying to filter on, then you'll see everything in that region.
Yeah.
And the filtering becomes less effective. So
I would have had two filter, like I would have had a region drop down filter and then the free form for the blocks and categories. Though category could also have been some sort of drop down as well, because they're fixed. The block names, that makes sense to me, that you're not necessarily that you want to have a free text search field or filter field. But the region at minimum could be a drop down. So a second piece of the filter.
yeah, I guess those of us who've been doing Drupal for a while are familiar with all sorts of filters. Like on the content page, you can filter by type or by taxonomy term and all sorts of things. And I guess the sort of more common approach these days is, oh, people just want a single text box that they can type into to search or filter.
Yeah, I mean, we could test with one of those. You could test with the someone working against the admin menu with a lot of modules installed or something, and just see if they needed to move things around, how it worked for them in some sort of usability testing.
I kind of miss when we could see with Drupal 5, I think we could see where the regions are located on the blocks page. But it's not really not possible when we have separate admin menu, and it's better this way usually. But yeah, I was thinking, what is the use case for this filter? Because it's very misleading if we want to reorder stuff. Because yeah, for the obvious reasons that it hides the different parts, but it also hides kind of if we want to order, we want to locate search form narrow, and we want to like move its change the order inside primary menu. Then again, then we have to filter. We find, yeah, it's there, then clear the filter and then go to try to find it again by scrolling, I think.
yeah.
Or more it would be like better example, the highlighted section, if we want to move primary admin actions below status messages. So filter is kind of it can only kind of verify that we have primary admin actions there in the highlighted section, but then we have to clear and to be able to switch for instance, primary admin actions and status messages the other way around. We can't do it with the filter on.
That was really
Sibo,
sorry.
sorry, I was going to say, Sibo, your point about kind of things from Drupal 5, actually, I think it's easy to miss, but Ralph, if you scroll up to the top of the page, there's a link that says demonstrate block regions, and it will show you it in the theme. Is that kind of what you were referring to?
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that. Like for quite a few years.
Yeah, maybe that should be a more obvious link, because that is a really useful link.
Yeah, so I guess there are now at least two problems we've identified if you want to reorder blocks. Then the first one that Ralph pointed out is that if you've filtered on block names, then most of the regions are not going to be shown. So it's hard to move it to a different region by click and drag. You still have the drop-down list, but it sort of disables moving to a different region by click and drag. And then, as Simo points out, once you've found the block, if you want to move it within the region, then you can't, because all the other blocks within that region have been hidden by the filter. So I think that a fairly easy way to fix the problem Ralph mentioned is not to hide any of the regions. Yeah, I guess there was another problem that Ralph pointed out. If you did move it using the drop-down list, then the region it is now in is still hidden. So I think that also would be solved by the same fix, by not hiding any of the regions. Problem Ralph pointed out, I don't see any obvious solution. So Ralph, is that what you proposed in your comment? So you commented on...
No, in that comment, I just commented in regards of a technical issue. The UX related ones, I don't want it to touch before we have a discussion here.
Okay.
It was just basically if you drag, it happens that currently I'm unable to reproduce. Maybe it's meanwhile fixed. Problem is, at one point after 3 or 4, or sometimes on the first click and drag, the dragged block kept on moving along the cursor in vertical. So basically I was able to move, 1 second, I can show the video. Oops, 1 second. As you can see, oops, 1 click, drag, and then I release the button. But when I moved the mouse cursor, the block moved along, and I got type errors in the console. But it's a known issue, and
it looks like it has been fixed.
Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. I have to test afterwards. Right before the meeting, I saw that there were new changes and commits, but those are only unit tests, so I'm not sure if anything in particular changed in regards of the actual code there. Yeah.
I actually just realized we have the same icon when you can drag inside hierarchies, and when you can't drag hierarchies. So it's kind of misleading having the left to right arrow in the same icon. So it's yeah, it doesn't, maybe it doesn't really matter if it's the same or not, but it's actually different behavior when you can also drag into kind of like menu items you can drag into hierarchy, so you can actually drag left and right also.
Good
But
point.
with
Good point.
uh,
So you mean basically in that case, the more appropriate and clearer icon would be just an arrow up and down vertically and remove the horizontal.
yeah, and we could also use some kind of highlights if you like on hover. I think it kind of increase like, yeah. So it could kind of it would be maybe too small change, but it could only highlight the direction you can go to.
Yeah.
So, but that's not in this issue, but it could be something. It would give a little bit extra information if you can go only up and down, or if you can also go left and right.
Thomas?
I'm still so as we've talked through this issue, I'm still seeing a slight difference between what I had talked about and these other two issues, in that I think you may have mentioned, Benchy, the issue of like it's not clear what the purpose of the filter is. So using this filter, is it intended for the use case of reordering, or is it intended for the use case of simply finding a block so that you can change its region? Or do one of the other operations that are available. Like if because for me, I keep on thinking, okay, if for whatever reason I had a bunch of different forms, category sections, and I wanted to move and reorder something between two different blocks, or I guess block categories, not categories, the primary menu and secondary menu. If the goal was to move it cleanly between them, I should not be reordering, because I'm not necessarily showing everything in that section. So I understand that we don't want to recommend anything different than a single form search box, and that's okay. But then I don't know that I'd want to allow reordering. I'd want the focus to not be on reordering in that instance. The fact that you can do both, but you're going to get situations, if you've got a lot of blocks, where you're only seeing a subset of the blocks under a particular block. The secondary menu, I don't know what we call those, the block, not categories, but the bolded section under block. Because again, like you can filter it down and not get all of the available blocks under those regions. Yeah, and I guess those are block regions.
Yes.
So yeah, to me it would be really, really confusing, because I've seen newspaper sites where they've got hundreds and hundreds of blocks, like crazy sites, and the filter's going to be misleading from my perspective.
Yeah, before we had the layout builder, it was more of a problem, because anytime you wanted a block, it would appear on this page. And that's, at least we have the option of using layout builder and don't need hundreds of blocks on most sites. But go ahead, Ralph.
Just one idea in regards of Simo's point and the ability to reorder. It might be a bit disconnected, but would it be an idea to try the following approach? Let's say you search, for example, for branding. Then, it's bad example, but if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 results, and then let's try, was it menu? Yeah, it was menu. Let's say you then click one of those, and if you remove afterward the filter, the focus stays on the clicked basically element, and that way it got scrolled to that position, and then you would be able in context to change the position that way.
I was
Not very intuitive. but
I was thinking if we could have some kind of a clear filter button next to the place block, so it kind of then clicking, it would be intuitive that the focus stays in. If we have a filter and we want to we're doing something with something in secondary menu, and if we click on that region line, there is a clear filter button. Then it's kind of intuitive that the focus stays there. So that kind of, it's a bit similar idea.
yeah.
But I think that's a pattern we don't have anywhere else, so that would be something new. I don't think I've seen that anywhere.
Yeah,
So basically, the button, the clear in the section where you press the clear button, the focus stays to that basically.
Yeah, because you click on it, so it doesn't. So if we can keep it so that the place where you click, it stays there, and then kind of the stuff comes either up or down from that.
how about a variant of that idea? Have the filter be sort of sticky or floating so that it's always in focus. I'm sorry, it's always on the screen, and then you filter on branding or whatever, and you find the block, and then you could clear the filter. So I think there should also be a little X icon inside the filter box to clear it. And then when you click on that, it would sort of find the, as Asima was suggesting, keep the focus of the current element.
Is it really that bad to make it searchable by region as well, if that's the behavior?
I think there are pluses and minuses to that it's not filtering enough if it matches one of the regions. Ralph, you still have your hand up.
Oops, oh, sorry.
Okay.
With sharing, it's a bit complicated to reach the reactions. Sorry.
Yeah, I do like Simo's idea, but as he said, it's sort of an odd pattern to have the clear filter button show up next to place block or whatever. I also like the idea that clicking on a row should select it. And that might be more natural. So you filter, you click on a row, it becomes selected. You scroll if necessary and clear the filter. Then the selected row should get focus. And that's more or less what you were suggesting, isn't it, Ralph?
Oh, yes.
How many people try to hold Control or Shift button and select multiple rows? Oh, yeah. Kind of.
I think even in contexts where that can be done, like multiple select lists, I think that it's a pattern people aren't very familiar with. So I guess we already more or less have that functionality. If you filter and then you click and drag, then the row becomes selected and stays selected. So what we're missing is that a single click actually selects the row.
Yeah.
And then we're also missing the autofocus when you clear the filter.
Yeah, but that's actually something that we need to change all of these when we want to be WebCAG 2.2 compatible. So that kind of requires us to change dragging.
Go ahead, Thomas.
If we could do that, so right now, looking at secondary menu, we see there's 3 items, and there's 1 on primary item. If we filter on menu, the term menu, we see that we only get 2 and 0, or 0 and 2. Why can we reorder when we don't have everything there? Because if you've got like 10 things under secondary menu and you're only seeing 2 of the 10 and you're seeing the first and the fifth, what does reordering mean in that context?
Yeah, that's another way of stating the problem that Ralph brought up. That once you've located it, you can't meaningfully reorder it until you've cleared the filter, and then you have to go find the item again.
Right. I'm wondering if when you're filtering, should we even allow reordering? Because right now you can. Like you could switch user account menu and main menu under secondary menu, and there's nothing to tell someone, hey, this is going to be the consequence of doing that. They are currently order 1 and 5, but you swapping them one over the other, they're going to become, is it 1 and 2? Are they becoming 4 and 5? Like I get that someone has to clear the filter to then reorder them, but it's not clear to me that anyone would know that if they were to reorder it right now, what should the consequence of that action be? Because I thought that was what was being demonstrated was if from this screen you chose in the region drop down a third region, it wasn't clear that it's not part of the secondary menu. So to me, I'm seeing multiple problems. Like they're not necessarily the same.
Yep. And just one brief addition. You exactly spotted one example. As you can see, primary menu as a group is also shown, in contrast to basically what the placeholder says. It's just block name or block category, but not block group.
Or maybe that could also be result of not having saved the change for main navigation. No, it doesn't say menu. Or let's see.
True. Yeah, correct. You're right.
Yeah, and there it filters category because main navigation doesn't say menu.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And just one small addition of one other screen. I just unplug my speakers. One other detail.
Voiceover on Safari. Block layout, vertical line, true path filtered by block name or block category, window, filter, search text field, as keyboard focus. Enter a part of the block name to filter by. You are currently on a text field. To enter text in this field, type U. 16-point Apple System UI font, a shade of gray 14 on a shade of menu. Enter a part of the block name to filter by. You are currently Safari, character palette, U, E, M, F, F, F. Misspelled, 16-point Apple System UI font, a shade of gray 14 on a shade of SDF, SDF, SDF. Voiceover off.
Is it telling us the color of the little X icon?
Yep.
Well, that's not helpful.
No, but that's the verbosity I've said. But no, the main problem is basically you get no feedback for screen reader if there are results or if there are no results at all. So there should be basically some sort of, 1 second, I have to some sort of feedback in that regard as well, from my point of view.
Good point. So let me give an example of what Thomas was talking about. Ralph, can you filter on the single letter R,
R, okay.
and then go to highlighted.
Yeah.
And say move secondary tabs above primary tabs.
Mhm.
So now it's above primary tabs and it's below primary admin actions. What happens now if you save the form? So there's status messages in the way, and you have no way when status messages was filtered out, it didn't have an R in it. You have no way of knowing whether secondary tabs is above or below status messages.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, also if there is only two visible, so you don't know if it's kind of a, it's if it will be moved to be the first or moved to be the last, or if it's going to be just one above the other that's in there. So if it, yeah, so if you filter by tabs and move primary tabs above secondary tabs or secondary, then you kind of don't know if it's if it would be the first one on the list also. So the first and last are kind of special cases of the same.
And I tried the same thing. I moved secondary tabs above primary actions and then below it. So at the end, I had the same three things: primary admin, secondary tabs, primary tabs, and I saved. And now in my copy of the site, or I guess it's the same as your copy of the site, secondary tabs is now above status messages. If you reload the page, I think you'll see the effect of what I did.
So in a way, the same what appears to be the same thing, it can result in different results.
Exactly.
Yes. I just think in my experience, people, when I was dealing with drag and drops like this, whenever you're filtering down, there's not enough information about what's happening. And so if you can take the action of dragging in and reordering things, there's no reason why someone wouldn't reorder between two different menus if you've categorized based upon category. So if you've searched a category core and you're moving things around between multiple regions and you've got orders within those regions, things could really rapidly behave in very unpredictable ways. Like it would depend upon what order you are dragging and dropping things. Like, are you going primary admins and putting that below primary tabs, or are you putting primary tabs above admin actions? Like, they're both ordered 1, 2, 2, 1, but where they show up with regions as well, moving between regions, it suddenly, like, you could move 3 things on, then save the menu, and everything is radically different than what you'd expect. Because we've just been moving 2 things at a time thus far.
Yeah, I have another idea, which is another variant of Simo's idea. What if we added a little checkbox or some widget for each region to say show all?
Override the filter for that region then.
Yes. So I guess the questions are, how intuitive is it and how usable is it? I think it's fairly usable. So if we combine this, never hide the regions, and then add this checkbox or link, then I think it's usable. You can move a block between regions, and then once you've found the correct region, you can show all the things in that region without clearing the filter, without showing things in other regions. And then once you see all the blocks within a region, you can click and drag within there.
Would you suggest something like a checkbox labeled show all blocks or show all blocks in region so that it's very clear what the intent of the checkbox is?
Yeah, I guess there's room for that. There's room for a long label. I was thinking that show all would be clear enough, but maybe the longer label would be better.
We
It's
can
good.
start.
Region mentioned at least. I'd actually like to have even without any filters, to have a kind of a hiding stuff from region. So if there is some kind of a long like content area with lots of different, then just clicking hide and then dragging like above it, like so from a region that's above content, dragging to maybe footer if that's in the bottom or something like that. So also just having possibility to just without filtering also to hide stuff, that might be also sometimes useful.
Maybe show and all would be enough if we had some sort of information or documentation link in the filter area. So like, because once you know how that pattern works, it's really simple to do and it doesn't need all that visual clutter. But I'd want to make clear, like make it easy to find that information. Like right now, there's nothing explaining how the filter works. So we could have a little link or an information bubble or something there, and then use something short, like all blocks, hide blocks, or hide and show whatever we wanted, or hide and all, something like that. Because for me, it's just if I were new to using Drupal, thinking in my old days hat, the hide, I would look at this page and not necessarily link hide on secondary menu when I'm scrolling down with a filter. So that's my only concern about that pattern. I think that is easy to learn. We just need to give a path to, besides just experimentation, because not everybody likes to experiment. Some people want to know explicit instruction.
Yeah, that was my two questions: usability and discoverability, and I think we agree it's usable, but perhaps not discoverable. And you think maybe help text underneath the filter might explain that those checkboxes below are tied to it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think a little bit of help text would be great. And if you were to, I mean, if in that help text you just simply said like hide checkbox, all checkbox, these are used to do X for the filter. Or you could even just say these are for the filter.
Right. Simo, could you make your point again? Because I didn't quite get what you were saying.
Yeah, like so that it would be possible also to, if everything is shown, it could be like as without filtering or something like that, it would be also possible to hide, rehide stuff, or hide everything if there is no filter.
Right. So if we use the checkbox,
Mm.
then you could select it or unselect it. Right. And I guess you were also suggesting some way of collapsing everything in a region, like maybe make each region a details element or something.
Yeah, so then it would be kind of the similar to not having a filter, and then kind of a reversing show all, kind of, because nothing is shown with the filter. So in a way, if you don't show everything, then it's showing nothing. But it's not really, yeah, I'm not really sure if that's the best way. But I think in a way, yeah, but some kind of details element could be. But then, yeah, technically it might be problematic with the drag and drop.
I guess if we have a checkbox to show blocks in this region, we could also have one to hide blocks in this region. And those would be overriding the filter. Okay, Ralph, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
In regards of hiding, on one hand, it might be a useful idea, but I'm unsure if it might be overwhelming that first you filter, then you have the option to show one group or two groups at once, and then hide again other details. That is some sort of inception and some sort of Matryoshka principle. And first you filter, then you hide, then you show, and it might be confusing. So I'm not sure. But one other idea, and on one hand, I'm also +1 for adding some help text or description underneath the filter field, just providing some context and explanation. And I wonder, is the place block button in case you filtered for something necessary at all? And wouldn't it be suitable to place the override the filter switch button there instead?
Just on that last point, I might be in a situation where I want to put this block in the same region as breadcrumbs. And so I filter on breadcrumbs
okay.
and I find it, and then
Okay.
I would still want the place block.
That makes sense.
Go ahead, Thomas.
So I was thinking that from my perspective, hide and show all are more like radio buttons. They're kind of mutually exclusive. I can't imagine a situation where you want to do both. So I don't know if that might be better than a checkbox if they're like you have that choice. And I would put a reset button in the filter at the top. So like so that you avoid getting things really weird and having to click through and scroll through and remove the hides and remove the show alls. Like at the top with the filter, you could press the reset, and it could even reset what's in the filter so that it behaves in a predictable way. Whatever you want to, when you want to reset all of the filter, you press the reset button and it clears out what's in the filter box, as well as removing any of the checkboxes on the page. But that makes it rapid to use, because I think of this situation here, you've got R, you've selected R, and you're like, okay, I really don't need to see the header. I really don't need to see the primary menu, but I'm really trying to go between the secondary menu and something below the secondary menu. And those are the two things that I want to be looking at right now. And I need to see everything on the secondary menu, and I need to see everything on the whatever was below the secondary menu.
Yeah, just a couple of quick replies to that. You'd never want show all and hide all, but there are cases where you want neither, or you don't want to override the filter.
Right. So not radio. Got it. Yeah. So radio is bad.
And yeah, I think we already said we should have a like something in the filter to clear it. It's not obvious to me that you'd want that to override the checkboxes. Like if I have a couple of regions with lots of blocks in them, and I've checked the hide all for those regions, it's not clear to me that I want to reset that when I reset the filter.
I guess for me, my concern was I didn't want to make the actual rows too much busier. And so I see that we've got the room next to the secondary menu, but if we put it's going to be hard to manage if you don't have a way to undo all those checkboxes, because I'm thinking of the scenario where today I'm working on blocks and I put checkboxes in like various combinations across 10 different regions. So I've got some of the regions are hidden, some of the regions today are show all because I'm just working there today. Having to then go through and remove all those checkboxes and potentially missing that I hid one of them, for instance, or yada yada yada. It if I don't have a way to get to those in bulk, then it can present problems in the future because you'll have an unexpected behavior.
You can force reload the page, but I think that might also be in the category of things that not everybody knows about, surprisingly.
True. Very true.
Well, along with control click and such. All right, we have less than 10 minutes left. Any further comments before we try to wrap this up? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ralph.
Just one question. In case it would be possible to show all block categories, or block groups, sorry, and
Regions,
for
you mean, right?
regions, yeah, terminology. Because, for example, if you have something like that, you have the node, there are no blocks matching the filter conditions. Oh, basically filter conditions. Or should basically an empty, what is the name again? I'm completely... If something, if for example header is empty, what should be the text there?
Or should there be empty text if there are no blocks in a region? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but for example, there could be no block in that region, or there could be no block that is matching the filter criteria. So there should be two different types of feedback to the user.
Go ahead, Simo.
Yeah, this was another thing. I was just thinking, do we have a universal way of how filters handle white space in beginning and in end and in the middle, but kind of do we have a kind of a fixed way of how all filters work, or is this something that needs to be thought of in this particular filter?
I'm not sure, but it's clearly matching anywhere in the word, so I'm not sure how white space affects things.
Yeah, it does affect.
Yeah.
So if you type space R in the filter, for example, that's different from typing in R. And space B will find site branding.
Yep. And without, you also find breadcrumbs.
Thomas, you wanted to say something else?
Just something that what Ralph was talking about triggered a thought in me. I don't know where the messaging belongs and if it belongs, but part of me thinks it would be nice that when the filter hides things from header, if we're showing all of these regions, next to the region, it would say 5 blocks hidden, 2 blocks hidden, no blocks in region. Like there's information when you're filtering that might be helpful to know, because if I am misspelling something I'm looking for on a long list, and I'm assuming it's under secondary menu, it would be helpful to know that I've hidden 5 things from secondary menu. So I'm doing something wrong with the string I'm looking for, and maybe I have to scroll through or look for a different string. I just don't know if that would give the differentiation that Ralph was talking about while also making it a little more usable to me.
That's a good idea, and I've seen that filter somewhere in the last couple of that pattern rather. I've seen that pattern. Can't remember whether it was Drupal or something else. Maybe it was Google. Ralph?
I just added a comment to the chat, but missed no blocks hidden. The second string is wrong.
Okay. So we have just a few minutes left. So I think we have some firm recommendations. One is that there should be something in the filter box to clear the filter. The second is that none of the regions should be hidden. And then, we don't have a firm recommendation, but we need some better way to make moving blocks around more reliable. And some of our suggestions are to add something, add a checkbox to show all blocks in a region, even if they don't match the filter. I think that's the best idea so far, although it needs some work. So 2 firm recommendations, 1 suggestion or idea for further thought. Go ahead.
The screen reader output I would also to add.
Okay.
To get a feedback that there is no results, or if there are results. And in context of the third point, also add a help text to the filter field. Was also brought up.
Right, especially if we're going to have the checkbox idea, then some help text there would be important. Anything else? Ralph, are you willing to leave that comment?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay.
Oh, and one small observation, but it's probably out of scope, also in the context of screen readers, is the configure button as well as the option button as well as the select field is sort of without context. You only see configure 3 times, or additional actions button, or you see highlighted required pop-up button, which out of context is hard to understand. But it's related, but
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Basically, if you are 1 second, quickly.
VoiceOver on Safari. Block layout. Vertical line. Drupal. Window. Block layout. Filter by block name. Block category. Search text field. Main. Reload page. Link. Skip to meet tray. Administration menu. Open. Form controls menu. Manage. Toggle button. Form controls menu. You are currently in a VoiceOver menu. Map shortcuts. Toggle button. Filter ship header. List additional primary menu. Required pop-up button. List additional actions. Button. Primary menu. Required pop-up button. List additional actions. Headings menu. Buttons menu. Manage shortcut. Second list additional actions. Button.
You have basically no real context.
I see. So this is accessibility.
Yeah.
More
nothing.
usability.
VoiceOver cursor. VoiceOver off.
That you're saying all of these configure buttons look the same to someone using.
It's redundant basically, and you're unable to navigate. You would have to go sequentially through the page.
Okay. Yeah, that does seem like a valid concern. It does also seems out of scope for the current issue. But it's a minute after the hour, so so thanks for attending, and Ralph will lead the comment, and we'll find another issue next week. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Nice weekend.